impact topic that bridges technology with the business strategy and the goals. And we have a very enlightened and an expert panel here, all of them chiefs. In fact, we have 2 chief marketing officer, 1 chief growth officer, and 1 chief operating officer. So we hope to learn a lot from them. And we will have some questions. We will, I have curated a few questions. If we get time, we'll also open up to the audience. Hopefully, audience will be able to ask a few questions too. So, as I was saying, it's a very high impact topic and very relevant, especially, both the, previous speakers have actually alluded to how complex the scene is becoming, how technology is changing. And you add to this, the impact of AI, how AI is impacting. And not only that, even the human, the target audience, their behavior is changing drastically too. The attention span that we talk about, do they even have any attention span? What kind of content they are willing to choose or willing to engage with. So let's start. So Arnav, if I ask you, let's go to the basics, some foundation. Tell us why the marketing dashboard itself and how they have evolved. And in spite of using so many latest technologies, why do we still see some blind spots? And how do we make it relevant, for the business and for the marketers?
Thanks, Dan, Manish. Hello, everyone. So as Manish said, it's an interesting topic. I hope we're able to do justice to it because the industry is evolving fast. And I think as we speak, there are changes in the way the consumers are consuming our content, right? So first and foremost, I think over the years, if you notice, as digital matures, as the number of KPIs that we track increases, I think the complexity at the back end also becomes enormous. I think as Amit rightly pointed out a couple of minutes back, right, that there was a time when you would allow the creative to play the game. Then came an era where you would allow probably the audience to play a game. But today, if you look at any dashboard, right, the numbers will show you the what part of the story. Now, behind every what, there are many whys that are contributing to that what in the dashboard. And your ability to crack that dashboard depends upon your ability to crack the right why for the given what in the dashboard. Your CTRs are fluctuating. Now, is that because your ad placement is wrong? Is that because your creative strategy has gone haywire? Is your audience targeting misplaced? Or somewhere down the line, your competitor is bidding higher than you and therefore you're losing out on the game, right? Your conversions are not happening. Is that because there has something gone wrong with your product description on the page? Or your reviews are not up to the mark? Or somewhere down the line in that entire funnel, you're losing out on the customer, probably at the cart stage or probably at the payment stage, right? D2Cs today have a lot of problem around RTOs, right? Now RTOs are increasing because your delivery times are higher or because there is a genuine misfit between what you're claiming on site versus what you're delivering, or you're actually not verifying the customer in case of COD orders, right? Now every KPI, every industry that you pick, there will be multiple whys contributing to that one what in the dashboard, right? The moment you amalgamate these whys and you bring it together, will you be able to answer the what in the dashboard? I think from my experience of having worked across industries, especially the one that I'm currently in, I hope everyone here will concur that the way your consumers are consuming content is dramatically changing by the day. Today, if I have to look at my one video and the revenue that is coming out of that video, that may be because the content pattern is changing. Are they consuming shorts? Are they consuming long form? Are they consuming lives? Is the revenue dropping because my content strategy has gone wrong? The topics that I'm picking, are they correct or not? Am I picking national or hyper local? What is the competition producing in the same genre? And even if I'm doing everything right, is my monetized percentage going wrong? Is my content brand safe enough for advertisers to advertise on it? Now, to answer that one question in my dashboard, I have to ensure that my answers to the why in each of these whats is answered correctly, right? So this is the one biggest thing that if as leaders we're able to answer, we will be able to crack the dashboards. The second major thing that we have personally experienced is that every team within the organization will have a good number of KPIs that they're tracking, right? Now I'm very happy looking at my overall impressions, my click-through rates, my likes, comments, shares, my CPMs, my CPVs, my VTRs. But the moment you talk to your CFO, probably they're more concerned about the CACs, the LTVs, right? The payback period, your blended ROAS, your contribution margin, right? And that is where probably that convergence is missing, right? Every team is very happy tracking what they are, but is that converging with what the ultimate output is desired by the organization? And the moment you start doing that, you will again start cracking those dashboards. The third biggest reason that I've seen across most of the organizations is that there are multiplicity of those dashboards, right? I'm looking at notifications, the number of notifications sent, the ones delivered, the number of clicks, click-through rates. You have newsletters, you're sending them, you're looking at the open rates, you're again looking at the conversions, the page views, and then you have an entire funnel analysis looking at the customer journey online. But somewhere down the line, what we oftentimes forget, that these dashboards are different, but the consumer is the same. Your ability to correlate these dashboards with each other and look at the customer holistically across the entire value chain will help you answer in one dashboard with what you're noticing in another dashboard, right? So probably some of the top 2-3 reasons that come to my mind. Manish, happy to delve into details, but probably we'll let the other.
Sure, thanks. Now, in fact, you touched upon some of the topics that I had in mind for the next questions. Like you mentioned about the what, the why, and the how, the important things, and how you address the data or the information you gather across the value chain, right? The journey of the customer. So Utsav, my next question to you, in this context, when you are addressing the customer across the value chain, the customer's journey, you are still in the same organization, but the data fragmentation is an issue that probably bothers most of the marketing professionals. How do you address that? There is do you see gap between the sales and the marketing professionals, the marketing team? Is there an issue between, data issue there? And how is it addressed? And what do you see in the future? Is it going to be resolved or it's still going to be an issue?
Thanks, Manish. I think to start with, Arnav managed to sort of solidify the fact that we're no longer in times where data poverty is affecting us. What is affecting us is insight obesity. There is just too much insight, too many stakeholders trying to process data to suit their convenience. And as a consequence, the conflict of their ideologies to the motives that they wish to serve is leading to this chaos. Let's be real. In most organizations, dashboards can also end up being corporate theater. You can use data to sort of mask and make a point rhetorically, but also drive your own objectives. And whilst this is not a CRM concern, this is a semantic inconsistency issue, right? Because the taxonomy itself is defined very differently for different stakeholders of the organization. You realize that marketing will come up with something like a qualified lead, and sales will say waste of time. But most of you who've sat in both those chairs will realize that whilst the organization is chasing the same goals, when they become KPIs and metrics for different functions, they don't distill themselves as unified data across the board, right? And the moment you start slicing and dicing that across, you realize you end up creating conflict. That conflict is an ideological conflict, or that is an interpretational conflict, is what the organizations have to streamline. Chasing CACs, chasing LTVs may seem like business health metrics. Looking at contribution margin is a business health metric. So for the leadership to continue to focus on the business health metrics is as critical as those two functions looking at their metrics. The problem is that when you start reading data without context, you start missing out on a lot of granularity. And you believe that having data and granularity is truth, and that is what gives you wisdom. I think contextualizing it in the right sentiment to what affects the business outcomes is what really gives the business wisdom.
Thanks, Utsav. Really insightful. In fact, one of the key questions in mind when I was discussing with you, in the other room was how do you, the fragmentation is a real issue, right? And how do you address that? And in fact, in today's world, when we have technology, where we have a lot of restrictions in, the kind of data to be used, the information that is allowed to be used by the marketing professionals, the cookies are going to be, the cookies are becoming more and more redundant in the digital marketing scenario. So how do you, and Sai, this question is, probably I'll address it to you. So how are you still able to attribute your information or the various, to the various touch points that, your campaigns are designed to target? How do you still, manage that in spite of all these restrictions?
Sure. Thank you. I think both Arnav and Utsav have laid the benchmark for how you should measure the campaigns. But largely, I will talk about how at Policy Bazaar we measure. Now we are moving towards a cookieless world, and they're also calling zero-click world. So all of this, but by the virtue of being a digital-first company and an organization where consumers come to us, shop or buy any insurance product directly from us, and also check out from our platform. So we have a very simple. To be honest, with so much data that we try to uncomplicate it. So basically what we have done is we have two streams. One is we say free traffic, and then there is paid traffic. These are the two clean things that we want to drive. And as an organization, our goal is very simple, that we want to maintain a free traffic ratio of 65 to 70%, which means that tomorrow if I don't do any campaign, this percentage of consumers will keep coming to me. The reason I'm saying this is because for the longest time we have invested in building the brand. When we build the brand, with keeping in mind the fact that if we invest in building the brand at the very early stage, for the longest time, whenever someone is thinking about buying insurance or buying insurance online, they will pretty much have Policy Bazaar at the top of their mind. And that's what we see when we look at our free traffic data. And the second part is the paid traffic. That's where we pay Google and Meta and influencer marketers and other, largely Google and Meta of the world. So the simple metric is that if we are doing a brand campaign, it should bring about a lift in our free traffic. And by the virtue of being an online brand, we are pretty much able to track that to the last dollar spent. And we've been able to successfully do it till now. In fact, most of the brand campaigns, even we do today, are measured from this this simple metric. And we also say that if we are acquiring a customer on digital on say X ROI, and what should be for the we acquire via brand campaign. The reason that the reason being that we're okay to pay a slightly higher CAC for a customer coming directly on our site. Is because when the intent is high, the conversions are better. So therefore, it's a clear metric. And there is no confusion within the marketing team, within the business team, and within the CFO, who kind of at the end of the day has a final say on how much spend you're doing. So because we all talk the same language, it is quite easier. But it's not so easy that I'm making it sound, but there is, over the years, we have tried to understand, what goes behind, there's a lot of data we look at, there are a lot of metrics that in the paid side or in the brand side we look at. But overall, the language is this, that, we need to grow the free traffic, which means we need to invest in building the brand, so for the immediate measure of success of that is incremental traffic. But the long-term success is how do we keep hitting the 70% mark ratio. And for paid is pretty much clear that, how do we keep improving our conversion rates? How do we keep working with Google Meta and the other teams to use their new products, use their new AI tools to keep improving, reducing our CAC and improving the efficiency. So the language is same across the organization. So it's pretty much kind of, settles the nerves when in a meeting room, different people are showing different dashboards. So, but you know that you are chasing these two numbers.
Thanks, Sai. Thanks for highlighting that. In fact, while you were talking, one of the things that, I was thinking that we are talking so much about metrics, right? And while doing some research, I, came across terms like vanity metrics, the value metrics, the actionable metrics. I think you did touch upon them also. And the topic of our discussion is how do we not just look at the dashboard for metrics, but rather focus on the ROI. How do we help the business? And Pooja, I think the next question we can ask you, how do we do this with because making a dashboard that gives us 50 different metrics is quite I won't say easy, but we have been doing that. The market industry has been doing that. But how do you focus on creating metrics that focus more on the business ROI, that focus more on this, different stakeholders that are looking at it? You have stakeholders at the CXO level. You have stakeholders at director and, the VP level. Then you have stakeholders at, operational level who are actually going to take actions. How do you address this?
Thank you, Manish, for the question. And I think my co-panelists have actually set the tone right. The importance of, the right metrics, the right frameworks, the right marketing, and the sales divide that we spoke about. In this case, it's very easy to add metrics. In fact, Manish, as you rightly said, we are very happy to have 50 metrics, 60 metrics on the scale. You know why that happens? Because typically what I have observed is dashboards are created by the rule of addition and not subtraction. What happens is usually new stakeholders come in, they all ask for new metrics to be added to the dashboard. Nobody really asks the questions what needs to be removed if something needs to get added, right? So at least for us at the bank, what we really follow is for us to be really, really effective in terms of our measurement. It requires two different principles to be followed and parallelly to each other. I'll just touch upon both and open to hearing feedback from the other panelists. The first one is really the rule of the kill rule. We call it the kill rule. Now, what does it mean? It means the right metrics need to earn their place where they are supposed to be, and you need to kill the rest. So that's the first aspect of it. The second aspect what we follow is the pyramid of tiered metrics for different hierarchies. It's a 3-tier metric pyramid that we follow. So in the first one, when we talk about the kill rule, right? The kill rule is about which metrics deserve the seat on the right table. And this is driven by different lenses. So the first lens here is really the decision lens. And the question to ask here is the metric really helping the leader who is looking at that metric? If that metric, say, falls or increases by 20-30%, will any decision change for the leader to stand up and make a different call or ask for a reset or ask for a change? If the answer to that is no, it is not supposed to be there because it's then operational, it's not strategic. So that's the first decision lens. The second lens we look at is the linkage lens, linkage to the P&L. Because we fundamentally believe if marketing is only talking about impressions, they will not get the seat at the table. It has to talk about the metrics that is measured across the table, which is unit economics. So hence, the linkage to the right line in the P&L, if the answer is a yes, that metrics deserves to be there. And if it is no, again, it's operational, meant for the respective functional operating teams. The third big lens in the kill rule is really the leading lens. There are metrics which define the future. There are metrics which define the past. A large part of these metrics which deserve a seat should have a perspective of the future, which means they should be leading. Because if their movement helps the management take a call in advance so that we can impact the future, then those are the right metrics to sit on the table. Otherwise, again, you kill those metrics beyond those piece. And finally, after taking the decision, after taking the leading metrics and getting the right linkage, the last but the most important, in fact, is the ownership lens. Orphan metrics don't move the needle at all for any business. So every metric needs to have a singular owner in the organization. And if there is a metric which does not have an owner, either you get the owner or you remove the metric. So that's really the framework we follow for the first lens that I spoke about, which is the metrics that deserve a seat on the table and the metrics that needs to be killed out. Now I'm touching upon the second aspect, which is about the pyramid of the 3-tier structure. So tier 1 is really what we all call, in our organizations, the North Star metrics. Now, the reason it is the North Star and not stars is because it has to be singular. And which Utsav also mentioned, right? These are really the CEO, the board level North Star metrics, which talk about the business health. It cannot be more than 1 or 2. So for example, it can be probably the earning users for an organization. It can be LTV at max, which eventually decides the share price of the organizations, right? So that's the North Star, the top tier metrics, meant for the board, meant for at max the CEO. Then comes your second tier, which is really the driver metrics. What really drives those North Star metrics? Again, these can be 3 to 5 at max. It could be for different industries ranging from the ARPUs, the users, the churn percentages, etc. Again, different teams following different metrics, but these are really the core drivers, 3 to 5 metrics leading to that North Star metrics. And finally comes the third tier, which is really the input metrics, which are the deeper input metrics across different functions, which really drive the needle for those drivers, which could be different for example, for marketing, it could be the CTRs, the impressions, the channel-wise ROIs, the segment-wise ROIs, geography-wise ROIs. So that's then the double click of those metrics. So clearly the North Star, the driver metrics, the input metrics, each of those, as you go up the pyramid, the number of matrices reduces, but the heavy weight of the metrics increases because of the decision at the table who is looking at these metrics. And it's very important to also institutionalize this in terms of certain rituals, because it's easy to say that you follow this, but it always gets lost in the way you drive things on a daily level. And for institutionalizing, there are certain rituals that typically we follow, and it really helps move the meter, is really having these rituals of, annual rituals of looking at the dashboards and doing an audit. Again, going back to the first principle, because context changes, industry changes, competition, consumer scenarios, everything changes. So it is important to relook at those dashboards during your annual operating cycles and really take a call on what's needed, what's not needed. There is one principle we follow is 1 in, 1 out. That helps us. If somebody wants something to be incorporated, the same team, the same person has to also come in with what needs to be excluded in place of that, so that your top tier remains top tier and it really doesn't get overboard to 50, right? So net-net, the conclusion really, Manish, for us is there could be 5 to 6 metrics that can help you really, really define the business moving forward, as opposed to 60 metrics, which will probably make a cockpit look like a museum, but it will really not move the ship forward.
So thanks, Pooja. But just a follow-on. So how do you change the culture of your team to start focusing on metrics that actually matter for the business? The decisions they make. How do you, in other words, inculcate a culture in the team that they should not just look at a dashboard for metrics, data, but more of, let's say, they should be looking at a dashboard like a crime scene, to get clues out of it. What clue is pointing to what? Yeah. So how do you do that?
So Manish, very valid.
So, sorry, but before that, I don't know if it is a confidential thing or not, but as a CMO, do you have for this audience one metric, if you wanted to share with the CEO? Do you have one metric that you would recommend for your from your organization that this is a metric, as a CMO, you would want to share with the CEO on a regular basis? Or does it change frequently?
So as I said, the context changes. Even the role of the CMO, in fact, my panelists will also agree, is evolved over the years, right? And hence, this notion of just looking at the input metrics to linking it to the P&L metrics. I think today, the job of the CMO is more about bridging this link between operational metrics and the business metrics and become that one face of the customer in the organization, where you show the mirror to the organization that whatever we are doing, whether from the product side, from the tech side, from the sales side, eventually has to come back to what the consumer is really looking for and be that mirror and change agent in the organization. So the answer to that question, the latter question, is one metric will not be the Holy Ghost and will also not be the same every year. It is about how the marketing function becomes the face of the consumer in the organization, how we keep the organization and more importantly the CEO really true to what's really working for the audiences, which we need to double click on, be the most agile team in the organization, honestly, and drive the change towards business growth and not just functional growth. Yeah. I think that's, but building on Manish to your follow-on question, I think it's a very, very pertinent question. It's very easy to say that metrics have to be cut down, we need to look at the right metrics, etc. But it's really the culture. And you rightly pointed out, it goes deeper into the culture of the organization, that how will this happen? And the topic for the day is about moving from reports and to interrogation, right? And typically when you just de-average these two words, report really is a noun. It gives you a document, which you can probably read sometime. Whereas interrogation is a verb. It actually leads to an insight, which helps you take decisions. So that's the fundamental mindset shift. So from a measurement mindset, the culture has to move to a decision-based mindset. And this change, honestly, a cultural change is not about tech change. It's not about getting the best of BI tools, getting the best reporting capabilities, etc. Because in today's world, that is a given for everyone, right? This is about making some really large shifts, both culturally from a bottom-up level, as well as from a top-down level. And I'll touch upon what I mean by both of these. From a bottom-up level, and this is more for probably the marketeers and the managers in our respective teams, right? We typically follow this, what we call as a 4I framework for our marketeers. So what does these I's stand for? I think the first I for them is really about the intent. So never build a dashboard for a metric. Build it for what is the intent behind that dashboard, which means every dashboard has to start with a hypothesis. You are getting out some data to either prove or disprove that hypothesis, which will move the business forward. So to give an example, it is not about, I want to look at the CTR. It is about which cohorts are really valuable for us to drive the LTV of the business, which cohorts will take forward the growth, which cohorts are more valuable, or which cohorts are actually more expensive. And hence, the dashboards need to give you insights on those cohorts through different metrics. It could be CTRs, impressions, etc. Right? So that's the first intent framework of what's the intent behind what you want to measure. The second I is all about interrogating, the mindset of interrogating. So the question is not about what has changed, which Arnav mentioned and Utsav also pointed out. It's not about the what. It is about why has it changed? What change happened? What context changed? Getting into the so what drill. So what if this has happened? What has it led to? So this really takes away the notion of just reporting to actually finding patterns, anomalies, which can help you either take a new decision or reverse a decision which could have led to this. So that's really the interrogation. The third and really, really critical one, in my view, is really integrating data with context. Because sometimes it's not just the data. It's not just what the dashboard is showing you. It is also about, is there any change in the external context, competition context, your industry context, your customer context, macroeconomic views, or something else which could have led to this. So the marketeer has to really integrate all of the data and the context and come back with actionable insights. And finally, it is about integrating this with the larger decision loops. Getting the right dashboard, getting the right decisions, getting the right owners to the dashboard, and setting it up right. So with all of this, the bottom-up teams are then aware that this is how they need to approach. But having said that, Manish, as you rightly mentioned, the culture is not just built from the bottom, it is built from the top. And as leaders, I think it's important for us to build this culture by shifting the questions. We should stop asking the what. We should start asking the why of it. Yeah. We should also shift the role. The role of the analyst is not just about giving the data. The analyst has to be the data detective. The marketeers have to be the question officers. They need to start questioning that data much better. And it is then eventually about also shifting the rituals. The rituals are not about looking at the dashboards. The rituals are all about looking at what decisions are made with those dashboards, what hypotheses are being tested, and really rewarding curiosity over compliance. I think that's the larger intent.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pooja. And Sai, one of the questions I had in mind in the room when we were interacting is, finally, I mean, all these metrics, the data, who creates these dashboards, right? And unanimously, the answer was that we created ourselves, whoever the stakeholders, right? So in that context, what, from the ROI perspective, which financial metrics do you think are absolutely key to report on? Do you have certain preferences?
No, I think there are 2 to 3 metrics that we clearly focus on, which is what is the value of new business upon the overall marketing spend that we do across the sources. So say for example, if I'm walking into a CFO's room or my CEO's room, these are 2, 3 metrics which I will absolutely be focused on, which is you add the marketing cost, you add the operation cost, and then you look at what's the value of new business that you're generating, and that needs to be profitable. So that's pretty much one metric that we focus on. And as I mentioned earlier, that like Pooja also mentioned, the North Star for us is my free revenue from my free sources increasing or not. So that is a very, very important metric for us. Sorry, at the cost of repeating myself, that is one metric that we follow from the chairman to the CEO to me, to the brand manager, to the paid marketing executive. Everyone follows that. So that is the second metric. And third is what is extremely important, at least in our category, is what is the LTV of the customer. So because we are actually a marketplace, so if a customer is buying a product, say a term insurance, he is also eligible to buy a health insurance or an investment product or a travel insurance whenever he's traveling. So can we multiply his value on our platform is a metric that we follow. So these are the 4 metrics that we follow. And then the most important for our category is the CSAT, which is in an insurance category, if the final eventual goal, which is when you are going for a claim and you're not satisfied at that point, then you pretty much lost a customer, because even if 95 customers have a good claim experience, but if 5 customers have a bad claim experience, so those 5 customers will actually talk about it more than the 95 people who have got a good claim experience. So CSAT at the point of claim is again a metric that we track, we follow. So in fact, we also have a small team which kind of is dedicated to go and work with the customers at the point of claim and help them, even if they are not our customers. So we end up helping because there are a lot of challenges that consumers face. So yeah, so these are the metrics that we follow to the T.
Thank you, Sai. Really appreciate that. And so, I mean, talking about, see, these topics are not really complete without, discussing AI now, like any other discipline, not just marketing or MarTech. AI is pretty much there in all the discipline we see. And Utsav, what is your view, you know, um, when it comes to, you know, AI in marketing and MarTech? What do you see? Do you see the death of the, you know, the dashboard, the charts? Do you still see the CXOs, you know, looking at the charts and the data on the screen, or do you expect times to change and you expect the agents to interpret the information and give the CXOs a capsule of recommendation? Is that something you see in the horizon, or maybe even now?
See, at the risk of sounding blasphemous, let me just start out by saying marketers are self-obsessed. They will not sort of attribute clear credit to AI. Last I heard from somebody, the best AI tool in the room was BRAIN. So yes, you are right. AI is right here. We've sort of got it integrated in everything that we are doing. Will it replace dashboards? I think, like I said, we're self-obsessed. We are creating these dashboards to track our individual performance, but also to conform to corporate theater, right? This is, in a way, a demonstration of performance as well. The only unified means of being able to qualify and attribute performance ends up being dashboards, and hence dashboards become cultural regimens in large organizations. Will AI change this? The answer to it is most definitely it's already changed. It's changed not in the form of tracking data, but in terms of the sheer interface used. Today, a chat is as much a form of a dashboard where you're conversing with AI, asking a contextually relevant question. You're no longer looking at CAC data, but in a way asking an agent about what happened to the drop in conversions in North India over a certain time span. Instead of rummaging through those 40 different sheets, you are getting a synthesized answer. The interesting bit here, to be honest, Manish, is not whether AI is right here or not. The question is how, over the course of time, are consumers going to start using AI to begin interfacing with the brands in reverse? And that is where the game begins to change, where you will have to lead with trust. You are no longer pandering to consumer preferences. You are going to have to build dashboards that account for how consumers will use AI to engage with the brand itself. So that is going to be fun times. But to answer your question, I think more than certainly the interface has changed. I don't think the obsession with the dashboards is going to go out of the room. We will continue to make some of those. And to sort of add on to what Sai and Pooja were talking about, I think the fundamentals of what tier or what level of that pyramid that Pooja spoke about, that dashboards are being referred to, are going to drive some of these conversations, right? Today, at the top, the conversation needs to be about contribution margin. Now that is going to account for CAC, it is going to account for repeats, it's going to account for direct traffic, it's going to account for free traffic, it's going to account for all of that. But so long as you are as a business obsessing about the right metric, then whether there is AI or not, you're focused on the right metric. Identifying that, to my mind, is more critical than worrying about what a dashboard will look like. Sure, it will not look like the Bloomberg screen. It will look different. But okay, it's going to become easier for us to have bite-sized, palatable information. And what's the harm with that?
Thank you so much, Utsav. So in interest of time, I have one more question pertaining to AI, interestingly. And this I'll open up to all of you, but starting with, you know, Arnav. Now, I mean, we speak about MarTech, marketing, how, you know, your content is engaging with humans, how your content is, and then people come up with challenges and concerns that what is the, you know, the attention span of a Gen Z? Do they even have any attention span at all? You know, in this era, now we are, you know, we have to deal with AI as a customer. So how about, I mean, how do you see things changing when you are now not only marketing to humans, but you have to focus on how to market to machines? Because they are going to be a large part of the business now, especially in the B2B segment. So how do you see that? So.
Interesting question, Manish. I think some of my co-panelists have made some very interesting points about how does a perfect future look like and what are the things to really focus upon to kind of drive the business and move the needle internally. And one of the biggest things will obviously be how do we tackle AI. Now just to put things in perspective, right? There was a CMO index in 2026. While AI is the buzzword, and if we ask you, everyone will have some of the other opinion about AI. But as per the CMO index 2026, which was mapped across 11 industries, there are only 12% of the industries which have barely managed to incorporate AI in the actual workflows of the organization, right? There is a lot of usage of AI, but is that in the reporting layer versus using it actually in the performance layer and completely metamorphizing your business into something that automatically yields results is still in the process, right? Now I take the liberty of commenting on the future as Manish asked, right? There are incidents, there are practices wherein one, we are directly marketing to an AI agent first, testing the playground. If it works, then we take it to the market. The second thing is that your marketing campaigns are now oriented towards AI bots, and how do you tackle that, right? So I'll answer both the questions. The first one, right? You're essentially testing all your marketing campaigns on AI. Is that the future? It does save a lot of your budget. It does increase your go-to-market speed. And it's a lot easier than testing it out on a sample of audience and then taking their feedback, right? Is that the future? You're essentially, at the end of the day, creating an echo chamber effect, right? Imagine 1 year down the line, your AI is now learning on the campaigns that were implemented on AI. So you're essentially just creating an echo chamber effect wherein the learning of an AI happens through an AI, right? There will be a complete homogeneity in terms of the campaigns that are getting churned out, right? At the end of the day, the creativity gets killed, right? And plus, when you're essentially reaching out to an AI agent to test your campaign, the cultural sensibilities and the political democratic sensitivities of the country, they get ignored, right? You're essentially learning from your past and planning your future campaigns. That inherent bias gets incorporated into your campaigns automatically, right? First point. The second piece of it, if you're, instead of your customers, it is essentially your AIs that are judging your marketing campaigns, I think that is the brightest future that all of us as customers can expect. Not as brand marketers, but as customers, that is the best thing to happen, right? Now it is not the emotional undertones that are playing. It is essentially the ability of a brand to win the trust of the customer, stand the test of credibility, and over a period of time, when the AI certifies that whatever claims the customer, the brand is stating, that is validated by the ingredients that the brand is stating, that is validated by the reviews that are coming on the site, that are validated by the influencer videos that are essentially going out on YouTube and what are they claiming about the brands. Now your bot essentially gives a 360-degree perspective of your brand to the customer. Now as a brand, what is the way out? You have no way but to essentially stand by the promises that you make. Is that the brightest future? Possibly, yes. For the customers, definitely. For the brands, some of us will have to align, but essentially that will be the way forward.
Thank you. I wanted to keep a few minutes for the audience also, but before that, anything to add, Pooja, on this one?
I think Arnav has summarized it beautifully, but just one piece that I would like to add here is that while the future is changing, while we are, as you rightly said, expected to talk to machines and already started, however, I'll just go back to what Amit also mentioned in the keynote, right? The love for the brand will still be very important. And I don't think we can have bots create that love effect. And it is the owners of the brands and the humans who are running those brands to actually define what does the brand stand for, which are the right consumer problems that we are addressing, which are the spaces that we want to own to eventually win the trust of the customer. That is the core job which I believe the marketeers will now become experts, or this is the core area where the marketeers, the human leg of this whole ecosystem, will really double click and get deeper. Because this is no machine. This is what the humans will train the machine on. And if this is taken up seriously, that's when the multiplier effect of taking what you stand for, your love, can get anticipated to the end audiences. And it will not really be transactional in nature. It will really be brand love, brand emotion into the multiplier effect of efficiency leading to the end goals.
Any point from you?
So I think the simple mantra for us is do more with AI and do it better with AI. So if 2 years ago we were not using AI at all, so across streams within marketing we have using AI. So for example, if a performance marketing team is able to generate, say, 100 creatives in multiple languages, use the power of Meta and Google's AI systems to improve the conversions, so that is something which is a very, very big positive. So again, if you ask me in the 2 years, have you reduced your marketing team workforce? No, in fact, we have added. But those added people have actually trying to deliver more by using AI. So be it content team, be it even a simple consumer insights team to build their research report would take a lot of time, but they're able to make the research report with the help of AI and then move into generating other insights for the businesses. So basically the simple mantra for us is do more with AI, do it better with AI.
So time is up, but I think we can squeeze few seconds for your reaction to this also.
I think enough's been said about the fact that there will always be room for creativity and human intervention and building brand love. But let me just take a slightly polarizing stand and put it out there that the next time that we convene, I'm sure we'll be discussing search engine optimization getting replaced with synthetic entity optimization. AI would change how each of us will, as marketeers, behave going forward. I don't think that is the future. That is the present. The 88% who've not conformed to it are playing catch up, I'm afraid to say. That's all.
Thank you so much. I think we covered, the foundations, the metrics, how metrics from vanity metrics to value metrics to actionable metrics. Then, the business side of it, the ROI, how businesses are, focusing more on. And in spite of the focus on the business, we still see that, the people are, many marketers, as per one of the reports, I can't validate it, but at least close to 50% of the, the marketing professionals are still focusing on a lot of vanity metrics, the number of clicks, the number of views, whether they are relevant, for the ROI that the topic is, I don't know. You are the expert. But yeah, thank you so much. Do we have any plan for any audience questions? Or do we need to wrap up? One? So, okay. So I think...
Just a small question.
Okay.
See, when we are talking about love for customer, the first thing is when the love is there, it means easy, approachable. Okay. I just want you, because you all are established companies, how much time a customer will take to reach you for a feedback in case he's dissatisfied? You may be doing whatever AI or anything. Customer does not bother about it. He bothers about only one thing, if the services are not delivered, how much time he takes to reach you. Because day by day, what I'm trying to find out is that the time which is taken to reach to the right person, to speak to the right person, is increasing day by day with the involvement of the technology. And that time gap leads to more dissatisfaction. And all of you are here, you can say who is the fastest or to reach, and it really matters for a customer point of view.
Yeah, but to save time, I will probably prefer one person to answer, not all of you. So any volunteers? Yeah, Utsav?
So I'll take it on behalf of the rest. I think the definition of consumer delight for every organization is very different. And you're absolutely right in pointing out that as customers you seek solace in having spoken to somebody. I think times have changed. The reality is that what the customer seeks is closure and solution, and not necessarily a human at the other end who's listened to the consumer. So long as you can use technology to answer and get a closure, I think the customer is happier, as opposed to speaking to somebody who keeps him on the phone for the longest time and still does not get a closure. As long as that is clarified within an organization, and I think Sai greatly spoke about how NPS is a metric for most organizations and they want to talk about repeating customers today more than ever, I don't think that's a problem. I think it's our way of looking at things, our belief, our trust in technology and AI that is sort of bringing this cognitive bias about. The world shifted.
Yep. Thank you so much. And in this era of short attention spans, really appreciate all the audience. Is it okay we take it offline? Sir? Yeah. I think the panelists will be more than happy to answer your question offline also. Thank you so much.